Welcome to the May 2026 Microsoft Product Licensing Terms update from the Software Asset Management practice here at version 1. Hey Dan, hey William, how are you doing today?
Yes, well, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah, going good.
So William, over to you. Do you want to go through what you found in the terms
yeah,
this month?
yeah, sure. So there's a few bits to go through. So first of all, they Microsoft have added new terms for the launch of Agent 365. So there's two core elements here. So first is the data privacy notices. So Agent 365 is a governance layer that controls agents within the Microsoft 365 tenant. And this Agent 365 integrates data between various Microsoft products, Defender, Entry, Purview, online services, etc. Now, customer data and the personal data, Microsoft is saying, may be copied to and processed and stored by various Agent 365 integration services, which is all of the items I listed above, as well as Copilot Studio and Foundry. Now, once data is transferred between and to an Agent 365 integrated service, the data is essentially governed by the product terms of the Microsoft product where the data is stored or processed. So it doesn't, Agent 365 terms don't supersede the product terms of the Microsoft products it integrates with. So it is just a plain, it's an overarching sort of product, and it doesn't actually have more power or weight compared to the product terms of the products it integrates with. So customers are advised that they're responsible for their own governance, oversight, and practices, and they should evaluate whether data flows between those Microsoft products using Agent 365 or governed by Agent 365 are appropriate to their organization's use and compliance requirements. So that's quite an important one, really, because obviously data and compliance is absolutely key, and when Agent is integrating data between different sources and different products, you shouldn't lose sight of that aspect. The other one is the Windows 365 agents. So whenever a customer enables Windows 365 for agents, the customers will be metered by the first-party consumption services, which are basically the Microsoft Online services that are available as an Azure meter, such as Power Platform or Dynamics or Copilot Chat. So that's just to say that it's not an Azure service; it's a Microsoft Online service. They have also added Windows 365 Agents add-on to Copilot Studio. This has been added to the availability table. So on to the next one, which is quite a big one, really. And we've come across this very recently as well, a couple of times now. So they've updated the terms to support the launch of software assurance in the Microsoft customer agreement. And we are going to do a full separate piece on this, as there's a lot of detail to cover, but just to summarize what the product updates sort of are alluding to. Software assurance can now be purchased, renewed, and managed under MCA in supported scenarios, instead of being limited to essentially the older volume licensing motions, such as an enterprise agreement. The scenario for this is if a customer has Microsoft 365 and server licenses software assurance under a enterprise agreement enrollment, which is quite a heavily bureaucratic and large scale Microsoft licensing agreement. Now that they've removed those programmatic discounts from EAs, customers have been looking to move end users like Microsoft 365 to a more flexible cloud solution provider motion, which is an MCA agreement for flexibility in pricing. And they can now also move their server software assurance to a Microsoft product and services agreement, an MPSA, which is also deemed to be a Microsoft customer agreement within the MCA stack. And they won't have to buy new underlying licenses, as was previously the case. So essentially gives customers more flexibility to keep software assurance coverage whilst moving out of an enterprise agreement, and therefore it reduces the need for customers to renew into that legacy EA style agreement. And it can simplify procurement, because if customers are already moving to the cloud or on-prem, then the licensing just fits into Microsoft's, shall we say, preferred and newer commercial model. So there's a lot to unstack there and unpick, but so we're going to go into that in more detail in a different piece. Final piece I have got today is updated terms to support the launch of Microsoft 365 E7. And this essentially means that anywhere within the product terms where you see Microsoft 365 E3 or E5, those terms have now been updated to include reference to E7. No change to the terms themselves, just the inclusion of E7 alongside the existing E3 and E5 titles. And I think over to you, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Some of the, just before we go to Dan, I think that those changes, some really material changes there. So
yeah,
we'll definitely push some content out on those changes in weeks.
It allows the breakout from an enterprise agreement without penalty, and having to buy the new licenses all over again just to get software assurance.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Cool. I've got less exciting things to be that I found this month, but all exciting the same. So they've updated the licensing prerequisites for Microsoft Defender Experts for Server and Experts for Hunting, which is really just about tightening the dependency model and making sure customers have, your required underlying security services in place before using those managed offerings. There was a change to Azure as well, where we're seeing the introduction of a new term used for something called Azure Capacity Blocks. Effectively, it's a new way of reserving compute capacity, which could help cost and planning implications for organizations running predictable or sort of high demand workloads. And then the last thing that sort of came from that is Microsoft have formally added Azure Capacity Blocks into the glossary, which is, like a strong signal that this is now a defined licensing construct that customers need to understand from both a contractual and compliance perspective. So,
thanks, Dan. So I'll wrap up with a few changes that I've looked at. So first is with Microsoft 365 unattended licensing. So our licenses, Microsoft in this particular instance this month, they've sharpened the use of limitations to reinforce what the license is built for. So as you'd expect, automation and task execution. So the update also makes it explicit that outputs generated through RPA or robotic process automation or bots can be used to develop, train, evaluate, or improve AI or machine learning models. So interesting caveats in there. And that they can't be used to replicate product functionality. So to be clear, this clarifies existing intent, permitted use based on previous product terms. It hasn't really changed. I also had a look at Office applications and Microsoft 365 applications again. So Microsoft added a new section called Use for Training AI Models. Same principles as the unattended license apply here. Outputs generated via RPA, bots, or similar technologies can be used to train, evaluate, or improve AI or ML models, or to replicate product functionality. Again, clarification, not a change in what's permitted. So obviously Microsoft being quite restrictive in terms of being able to protect potentially their own IP through misadventurous use of their technology. Finally, then there's two other terms I'll look at briefly. One is just around the universal terms for online services. So Microsoft's updated the responsible use of Microsoft AI services terms to cover the use of automated classifiers for AI services. So if you're working with AI services, I'd encourage you to take a look at the refresh language there in the universal service terms. And then finally, Windows 365, Microsoft has removed the terms covering Microsoft, or should I say Windows 365 with Windows Hybrid Benefit. That product has reached end of life and is no longer supported, so the terms come to an end with it. That about wraps things up for this month. So some interesting changes there. I think, William, you probably got the most exciting ones to talk about around the the movement and Microsoft's change in approach to software assurance into the future. So that's a welcome change, and hopefully that will have a positive impact for a lot of customers who are looking to modernize how they license Microsoft technology, but have been restricted by having those old licensing constructs in place. Obviously interesting to see that emergence of the new e-plan for Microsoft 365, which we'll get into a little bit more detail on in the coming weeks. In the AI space, as usual, we see each month lots of tighter guardrails being put in place there around how products can be used to train AI and the outputs and how they should be used and so on. So as always, if you have any questions or queries from a Microsoft licensing standpoint, or if you're looking to get to grips on other licensing, vendor licensing, please feel free to reach out to us here at the Software Asset Management Practice here at Version1. Delighted to handle any questions you might have. So until next month's product terms update, William, Dan, thanks a million. Chat to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.